The other thing that we found in our studies is in best practice organizations, they were more likely to have actually come up with and come to closure on a brand promise statement. And once they have it, they communicate it very broadly. It's not a secret strategy kind of statement, whereas positioning might be kind of something that's just kept within the marketing department and is more or less kept confidential because it's how you're going to, it expresses how you're going to develop your communication plans for a specific audience. A brand promise, on the other hand, is so fundamental that it should be obvious to everybody that interacts with the brands, and so these organizations will be actually quite open in how they communicate it and how it is translated. It's not a tagline. I'm going to show you that. It's kind of more basic than even a tagline, but it would be foundational to any taglines that the company does use. So these kind of go by many different names, whether it's a brand value proposition or a brand essence, or Kevin Lane Keller calls it a brand mantra, various terms, but fundamentally we're talking about a simple, clear, and concise expression of the essential benefits that the brand portrays, and that this brand promise is delivered through the total brand experience. So this is not something that is solely within the marketing department or the communication department that is the basis for their brochures or their website or their social media. It has to underlie everything that is part of the whole value delivery process that the organization does. And as I said, it's not a tagline. And to illustrate that, I want to show you just a very brief history on General Electric, or GE as we call it now. And their brand promise that has been in their brand book for as long as anybody's been using the term brand promise, but actually probably goes back even longer than that conceptually within the company. Here's a log of the taglines that they used in their advertising over the years. So this is going all the way back to 1912. But if you look at some of these, you can see a logical progression as the company, well, actually at one point they in the 20s they brought it down from GE, General Electric, down to GE. Then in the 40s they expanded it back to General Electric. But as years went on, their products and services were less and less dependent on electrical appliances and so forth. So they moved from a focus on electricity to Progress. We've got a patent on Progress for people. Some of you may be old enough to remember Progress is our most important product, and then probably some of the best corporate advertising that was ever done under We Bring Good Things to Life. And then at the point where Jeffrey Immelt came in and he introduced a new tagline, which is Imagination at Work, and there's some other programs associated with this. I think you've probably seen some, Echo Imagination and so forth. Now, this is a company that has changed dramatically during all of these years, but you can see some core things that went all the way through. The brand promise has changed very little, and even as a guideline in their communication, they always, always, always will show their equipment or their services portrayed in the context of making life better. So if they're talking about their medical diagnostic equipment, you will see a picture of it in use. So there'll be the child in the machine or getting a test, and you know that will give them a diagnosis, and they're going to be able to go out and cure whatever is wrong with the child. If it's they're talking about jet engines, you see the jet going across a clear blue sky, and it's delivering people to where they want to go, or it's delivering equipment where they can make life better on the other end. It's always showing life somehow being improved because of the use of GE equipment. Now, in recent years and with the introduction of the Imagination at Work campaign, and they have continued to change, and they've been selling off their consumer appliance division and focusing on their turbines and on their jet engines and other heavy technology kinds of things, trying to address the problems of the world. They really have brought in more emphasis on innovation, imagination, creativity, curiosity, which has been tied to some cultural initiatives. And more recently, because if you've seen any of their TV or commercials or what they've been doing on the web, they've been putting a great deal of emphasis on GE as a software and a technology company, because they are really trying to prepare for a place in the world of the Internet of Things, where turbines are talking to computers and back and forth, jet engines and maintenance via computer, and so there's constant diagnostics going on. So for this play, carving out this niche as the leader, the thought leader in the Internet of Things, they even coined a new word that becomes part of their brand identity, which is the idea of GE predictivity. I have a couple of other examples here too. So a brand promise doesn't have to be a simple line. Like I said, it's not a slogan. It's some statement, fairly brief, that can be used quite easily to shape how the brand's going to be portrayed. Adobe. Here's their example. This is right off of their website. Adobe enables people and organizations to create engaging experiences, and there's a list of what they consider to be those attributes. One I really, really admire that's quite new, Underwriters Laboratory, just recently went through a lot of branding work and came up with this brand promise expressed as stewards of trust. And then you see underneath that, they spent a lot of time wrestling with just what does stewardship mean? What is the role that UL plays relative to this question of stewardship? Catalyst, advocate, and you can see other words there. They did the same kind of wrestling with all the different dimensions and facets of what trust can be. So it's conviction and expectation and confidence and belief and safekeeping. So they really explored, they defined some words, but those words actually explode out to many, many different dimensions and facets that become part of that brand and will be part of how that brand not only is portrayed in its communication, but what they actually will live up to as they deliver products and services to the clients and to the public who trust the mark of Underwriters Laboratory. So just to summarize here on this point about brand positioning versus brand promise, positioning is really kind of very executional. It defines the frame of reference for a specific audience, talks about the points of parity or points of difference, whereas a brand promise is far more strategic. It really reflects core facets, core DNA of the brand, and we haven't talked too much about this, but also would encompass all of the sub-brands that might come under the same brand name. So that kind of wraps up this whole process of getting to the heart of the brand that we saw organizations going through. Which,
Heidi, this is Cindy.
Yes.
There's a quick question. Can you?
Yes.
I know there are some of our centers, and I was wondering if you can help explain this, but some of our centers also do have missions and visions. Can you talk, I guess, quickly the relationship between the mission and vision along with the brand promise?
Okay. Very often these are, they should all be related to each other. The mission and the vision usually are kind of corporate speak. So that we'll talk about having financial performance and we'll have something about how you deal with employees, how you deal with customers. So to be a good place to work, a good place to do business, a good place to shop, a good place to invest, and so forth. These three things should be connected. If you go back to this, I'm going to go back one slide. On this step 3, the articulation, sometimes these are done all at the same level. The mission and vision quite clearly are usually at the corporate level, but then corporations are also brands, and so they would have the brand promise on that level as well. So the vision kind of would be shaping the aspirations. The core values and competencies with that, I think the brand promise comes out at somewhat more consumer-oriented or customer-oriented terminology on what the brand means in the lives of the people who are buying the services, buying the products or buying the services. So where the mission and vision expresses what the organization wants to do and its performance, part of that promise and part of the way of achieving that is it's going to be promising certain outcomes to its customers, in this case better living for GE, being a steward of trust. This is what this gets to, and when you talk about steward of trust, that's going to be very close to that organization's mission as well. I don't know what their mission statement is, but it wouldn't be fundamentally any different than that. If that clarifies that somewhat.
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other questions on that? So they're kind of different facets of the same general same general process, or same fundamental aspects of the organization.